you could change the sound. Perfect. Okay.
I was walking down the street to my friend's house on a Tuesday afternoon. I was carrying his airsoft guns to return them to him because he left them at my house. I heard a car pull up, and I could hear a person exit the vehicle and yell, "Put your weapon down!" I turned to see who it was. As I was turning around, a searing pain came into my side, and I heard a gunshot. Although I was already fatally shot through the heart, I was shot 6 more times and had fallen to the ground. This is the story of a 13-year-old boy from Santa Rosa, Andy Lopez. Lopez was carrying an airsoft gun, a BB gun that shoots 6mm plastic BBs. People often confuse airsoft guns with metal pellet guns or air guns that can inflict lethal injuries. Airsoft guns inflict less pain than paintball guns and are not powerful enough to harm others unless the target is shot in the eye.
Federal law requires that all airsoft guns that are replicas of real firearms to have an orange flash hider affixed to the end of the barrel to distinguish between real and fake firearms. The airsoft gun that Andy Lopez was carrying had its orange tip removed, and it was a replica of an AK-47. However, the body of the gun was translucent. It was clear-bodied, which is another thing, though, that makes it different from the real AK-47. The police officer who shot Andy Lopez was Eric Gelhaus. And witnesses claim that he fired his weapon only 3 seconds after he told Lopez to drop his weapon. So he didn't give him much time to respond. Forensic evidence proves that Lopez had never seen the police officers, or had never had eye contact with the police officers before he was shot. Gelhaus states that Lopez raised the barrel of his rifle as he was turning around. However, shooting Lopez 7 times is generally, agreed upon that was unnecessary. And Gelhaus has not been prosecuted as of now. He took a leave of absence, but he came back, and he is still, working as a police officer. But the district attorney announced 13 days ago that her office is still actively reviewing the shooting of Andy Lopez to determine if Gelhaus should face criminal charges.
In our opinion, and the opinions of most people in the airsoft community, the bill, Senate Bill 199, would ruin the sport of airsoft. And this bill required that airsoft guns would be brightly colored, and it passed through majority vote this year, 23-8, and is now referred to the Committee on Public Safety in the Assembly.
If it passes there, then it will go to Governor Brown to be signed. And just to say an overview of the bill, it would require airsoft guns to be colored white, bright red, bright orange, bright yellow, bright green, bright blue, bright pink, bright purple, or completely translucent. So basically just, all these colors.
And airsoft is really played for its realism, and that's mainly the reason people play airsoft over paintball. And this bill would make all these guns unrealistic with their bright colors, much like Nerf guns. So in airsoft, the goal is to see the enemy before they see you, and this bill would just completely ruin that goal. And it would also force 2 of the nation's largest airsoft retailers to go out of business, as stated by the spokespeople of Airsoft GI and e-bike.
And that's because all of the product that they have currently in their inventory would be deemed illegal. Actually, wait, just go on the slide there. So this is going back to the shooting. This is the gun that Andy Lopez was carrying in comparison with a real AK-47. And as you can see, it's clear body, but it does have its orange tip removed. Yeah, okay, and another reason why we think this bill wouldn't be a good idea is because it would, kind of label these guns as toys for children and, the adults who are buying them for these kids. Because, then they're going to look just like Nerf guns. And, we all know that they're a lot more powerful than Nerf guns, and people can get seriously injured if, they're shot in the eye without wearing eye protection. Also, coloring them won't prevent criminals from painting their, real firearms in these bright colors,
And as airsoft players ourselves, we decided to research these regulations on airsoft in San Francisco because we both had heard conflicting views on whether or not airsoft was legal in the city.
So we found in the police code that the possession of airsoft guns is illegal, but if you have a permit from the chief of police, you can have projectile firearms, which is the category that airsoft guns fall under, or real firearms in the city if you're using them for a competitive sporting event, like shooting clays as an example. But airsoft is definitely could be considered a competitive sporting event. So that was kind of a relief, basically, in order to keep our sport alive, we need to stop this bill. And people are doing all sorts of things to, counteract this bill. I watched a YouTube video where this guy collected 500 letters from all these airsoft players and delivered them to Sacramento. So it just shows the support for the opposition against this bill. And there's also a Facebook page dedicated to fighting the bill on California's SB 199. And also, so actually on a side note, a few years ago, the same senator, his name is Kevin De Leon, proposed a bill 798, and it was essentially an exact copy of this current bill. Would make these guns bright, colored brightly, but that failed in the Senate. So some of the tactics that the airsoft community used a few years ago, they had representatives from these retail stores go to Sacramento, talk to these legislators, and actually talk in session. And so we think that if we use those same tactics, we have a good chance of stopping the bill. But also, the main reason why this all happened was because of the shooting. And the shooting could have been prevented if Lopez didn't bring his gun into the public, which is against federal law. So when these adults are buying these guns for their kids, they need to know that to tell their kids not to bring these guns into public, because a lot of them look very similar to real firearms, and they're not meant to be used in public areas. So we don't think that the bad decisions of both Gelhaus and Lopez should ruin the sport for the rest of the airsoft community. Thank you.
Questions?
Okay, so I understand you're trying to stop the bill, but if the bill doesn't happen, then we're kind of back to where we started. What if someone's carrying an airsoft gun again? And what's your solution for that? To just hide it in public?
Well, federal law says you're not supposed to bring them into public areas at all. So if people just follow the law, then everything will be okay. His friend who the gun belonged to removed the orange tip. People don't do that, everything will be okay. And also, police officers confuse, there's shootings like this all the time. And, most of them don't have to do with airsoft guns. There was a kid in Georgia who was holding a Wii remote, and he was shot in the chest because a police officer, she said after the shooting that she thought the Wii remote was a pistol, a real firearm. So these shootings are going to happen whenever you have a police officer who's really filled with fear, and this just isn't the right way to go about preventing things like this from happening. You need to let these adults know that to let their kids, to tell their kids not to bring these guns in public. And that's the main issue. Royce.
Do you think the bill would have prevented the shooting at all? Or do you think it would have helped? Or do you think anything would have changed?
It's actually funny. The gun that Lopez was carrying would actually be legal under the bill because the body of the gun was translucent. So the bill actually would not have prevented this shooting from happening at all. It's just the violation of existing federal law that kind of caused this shooting because he removed the orange tip. But also, Gail Haas was really overzealous when he drew his weapon and fired only 3 seconds after telling him to put his gun down.
This is just a little bit of clarification. So, if you have an airsoft gun in San Francisco with an orange tip, and could you go, let's say, to the Presidio and just have fun with friends there, or is that illegal?
That is actually illegal because all projectile firearms are illegal within the city limits, and that includes airsoft guns.
So also it seems like the airsoft community sometimes it's hard to know the laws about it.
Yeah.
So do you plan on educating people about that?
Well, yeah, that's definitely something that needs to happen. On Facebook and all these social media sites, people are trying to raise awareness. But just things like that, that's the key to preventing these shootings. Letting kids know that they shouldn't take these guns into public places.
So in your opinion, I'm following up on Rose's question, do you think that this legislation would even save any children's lives? Because people make mistakes. Parents don't always teach kids not to take the guns in public, and police officers, have a lot of fear. And if you see something that looks like a real gun and somebody moving toward you, you have to make an instant decision sometimes. So, do you think it will prevent any deaths, or do you think it won't?
It could potentially, but honestly, like David said, the gun was translucent, so with this bill,
Yeah, but any death,
any death.
that's the question.
Yes, I guess in a way, just because it'd be more obvious to any police officer that it's fake. But like you said, there's all of these different variables: fear of the police officer, or fear of the person holding a gun.
Well, can I add on? I also think that this would prevent maybe a few shootings, but just looking at the example of the kid holding the Wii remote, most of these incidents happen when the police officer can't see what it's not. Well, here's the thing: if this bill passes, then any criminal can paint his gun, these bright colors, and have it passed as a airsoft gun. So that's another issue which could, lead to the deaths of, other people.
So wouldn't it be the kid's responsibility to not bring it in public? Because let's say I'm a police officer and then I'm driving down the street and I see a kid holding an replica AK-47. If it's real or not, I mean, I'm going to be suspicious and I'm going to have to isn't the kid responsible for his own actions and that's his fault?
Well, yeah, definitely. I think it's just kind of when you're buying these guns, you have to know every detail. And I know when, personally, if when my parents bought my airsoft gun, we had a big sit down and this is what you're doing. You have to understand that this is dangerous. So I think that both the kids have to know and